I don't know what the prophecies were that had been spoken about or over or to Timothy, but there were prophecies, and Paul talks about that in verse 18 of First Timothy 1, where we've been looking. Timothy, my son, I am giving you this command. And by the way, remember, we don't know the command yet. In keeping with prophecies once made about you. And what I get from that is this command fits with what has been prophesied. Okay? So that by recalling them, it's not the command, it's the prophecies. By recalling them, you may fight the battle well. Couple of things. It's easy to remember the negative. It's really difficult to recall the encouraging and good and uplifting sometimes, right? I read once, I read two different versions of the same idea. One was that for every negative comment, it takes 7 positive comments to compensate. That's a pretty strong ratio. It's worse. The other one I read was for every negative content, 12 positive comments are required to compensate. Now, how they came up with that, I don't know. Is it a true scientific number, or is it some kind of pretty reasonable estimate? I probably would put it in the second category, but still, I think it's reliable. The fact is, we gather and retain negative that pops to the front so quickly, even when there has been positive. And in some ways, I think Paul, in every way, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, Paul, if he didn't understand the dynamics of human psychology, the Holy Spirit was speaking through him from a complete understanding of it. And I think what he was saying is, hey, Timothy, my son, term of affection, you're going to have lots of negative thoughts. You're going to hear a lot of negative things from people. You're in a position, and your role, your age, your inexperience will all set you up to hear negative comments, negative stuff. But don't forget these prophecies. Remember them. And sometimes, I don't know, said it last time, I don't think, there is no big dramatic prophecy that was ever spoken over or about me. But in this broader sense of, don't let the negative lure you into believing, lie to you, and convince you that it's all bad all the time, because it's not. And maybe you needed that today. Recall them, he said, and here's why: that you may fight the battle well. Paul was not afraid to use some word pictures and terminology that today in a woke culture are considered gauche and in poor taste. For instance, he often talks about us as soldiers. There was a time when that old hymn, "Onward Christian Soldiers, Marching as to War," that was an inspiring gospel song. And it's not a hymn because it has a chorus, just so you know. But it's fallen out of popularity, and I would guess if you're going to a contemporary church, you won't hear that. You probably won't hear a single contemporary worship song that draws any kind of metaphor or simile about the military, about us being soldiers, about this being a war. But we can never forget. We are and we will continue to be in a war. This is not just tough times. Listen, you know this. Be reminded. In times of war, times are tough. Okay. Remember the good. Remember the positive. Remember the encouragement, so that you can fight the battle well. This is not about just tough it out. You just do the best you can and try to not make too many waves and just endure. Yes. Endure. Good soldiers have to endure a lot. And Paul talks about that in other places. But what he's talking about here is not just hunkering down and listen to the bombs as they explode all around. This is about fighting. This is the offensive, okay? Fight the battle well. Who's the battle with? Now, I can tell you from my experience, and I was in ministry in located churches for 45 ministry, and now for 45 years, and now for the last couple of years I've been doing ministry not within a local church, but I feel within the church. But anyway, that's a whole big philosophical deal. But so I don't know everything, but I know a lot, and I can go back in my memory to, especially when I was young in ministry, it felt like there were some people in that church who were my enemies. I felt like I was constantly doing battle with them. And mostly it was about what they said about me that came back to me, and sometimes to my face. And it was hard. At a point in time, I thought they were the enemy. Well, guess what? They're not the enemy. Now, and I'm not even saying they were tools of the enemy, the devil. But I do know this. My enemy is Satan. And he will use everything and anything in my experience and at his disposal to come against me and God's design for my life. And often he does that through people. Sometimes even through well-intentioned people. And it just happens. I'm pretty sure it was happening to Timothy. And Paul was saying, Timothy, you're in a battle. You're in a fight. So, fight the battle well. And one of the things that you need in order to fight the battle well is a memory of these prophecies that were spoken about you. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give you a command, but in this moment, it's the prophecies. Remember the prophecies. Don't forget, God is working through you, in you. He has a plan, and you are part of his plan, whoever you are, whatever role you have. If I know there are times and seasons in our lives where we're not capable of a very deep engagement in ministry, okay, activity. There are seasons where we can and we do and we must engage and give ourselves and in fact spend ourselves. I think of it more as investing ourselves. But whatever season of life I am in, I have got to remember God has a plan and I am in it. it's not like, well, God's going to do something. He's pretty much realized you're no help. No. Even though you have an enemy that wants you to believe you are no help, you don't matter. What are you doing, right? Well, you don't bring anything to this. Okay, that. Can't remember the guy's name now. I heard him speak one time, and he said, it smells like smoke because it's from hell. And that's true of that line of thought. You and I often have no idea how God is working his plan with us as part of it. A lot of times we don't see it. I think there are times when we may never see it. And there are times when it takes, I'm far down the line before I look back and go, oh, that may have been, I may have, right? Okay. It's a battle. When you're in battle, is a soldier surprised when the battle rages? I don't think so. I've never been a soldier, but I'm pretty sure that's why they train you to be ready for raging battle, is because battle involves conflict. In our culture in America, life has in so many ways become so comfortable, and I don't know, people are going to take exception with this, but I think our life is easy. Our world is full of creature comforts. And I don't think that's evil, but I think one of the things that happens is because it can be so easy as we forget we're in a war. Well, fight the battle. Fight the battle well. I think every soldier needs to be reminded you have a part in this, and your part matters. So fight the battle well. And then he goes on, even more descriptive, holding on to faith and a good conscience. All right, holding on to faith. Okay, here's one of the ways you fight the battle well, is you hold on to faith. Your faith, your personal belief in the providence and provision of God. You hold that faith, because there are times when you'll wonder, you'll even doubt whether he is at work to provide, whether his sovereignty and his providence do cover all of the nuttiness and the insanity and the chaos and the conflict. But he is. I've told you before, I'll say it again, my personal definition for faith says there is a reality beyond what my senses can confirm. Meaning, if I can confirm it, I can prove it, it's not faith anymore. There is, and always will be, stuff until Jesus returns and we're in a new heaven and a new earth. Until then, it will require faith to trust and believe at least that God is sovereign, he is in control, and his providence will provide for whatever I need, although maybe not in the form that I prefer. And there's the rub for American Christians. God is simply not in the business of making us happy. It's not his objective. Certainly not his obligation. Well, chew on that. We'll come back to it next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.